Good evening. Lerner and Lowe's musical Brigadoon is set in the Highlands of Scotland, and in that show there is a wedding. And the wedding scene begins with the clans gathering for the wedding, and they come in one clan at a time, take up their positions, and proudly call out the name of their clan. I had the female lead in that show a long time ago, a character called Fiona. And I well remember a rehearsal which caused a great deal of laughter. Usually, in the middle of a rehearsal, there was a tea break, and everybody would have a cup of tea or coffee. But in the case of the rehearsals for Brigadoon, we were rehearsing somewhere where there was a hostelry just across the road, and it was not unusual for a group of the younger, mostly men, in the company to go across for a wee dram when it was the tea break. And on this occasion, after the tea break, we were going to rehearse the wedding scene. So the clans, somewhat depleted, arrived and called out their names: Campbell, MacDonald, Sinclair, McGregor. All the people in the room had arrived, and we hadn't actually got to the end of the music. And at that moment, the door to the room burst open, and in came the stragglers who had been having their refreshments across in the pub. They marched forward, and one of them called out in a loud and cheerful voice, "Odds and sods!" The rehearsal fell about in laughter, apart from the director, who was somewhat irascible at the best of times, and perhaps it will be fair to mention here that his name was Jock. There wasn't a musical society of the sort that did operas or operettas in Thurso when I lived there, but there was plenty of opportunity to sing. And mostly the singing took place with the local choral union, which I'm pleased to say still exists and flourishes. Once a year there would be the big choral union event, and we sang some very notable works. I remember The Messiah, The Creation, Hiawatha's Wedding Feast, the Christmas Oratorio, and I particularly remember the occasion when we did one of Mozart's major works. Now you have to know that we used to rehearse in the church hall, and we used to perform the big concert in the Church of Scotland. All was always well, all went smoothly, we usually got a good audience. But on this particular year, rehearsals were going all right. We were getting near to the date of the show, and posters started to go up around the town in order for us to start selling the tickets. And what were we going to sing? Mozart's Requiem. It was at this point that one of the church elders saw a poster and said, "Oh, we cannot do a papist mass in the Church of Scotland." The fact that some of the members of the Church of Scotland were singing in the choral union, and the fact that a good many of them would normally buy tickets to come, wasn't the issue. There was no argument about the merit of the work. The problem was the poster. It could not be seen to announce that the Church of Scotland was going to do a requiem, a papist mass. The matter was fairly quickly resolved because the church authorities allowed us to have our deposit back, and we moved the performance fairly smoothly to the main hall of the school where we rehearsed always. And by next year, it was all back to normal again. And the lesson we had to learn was that it's not what you sing, it's what you say you're going to do on the poster. A group of us who liked to sing more informally would rehearse, and sometimes in a very strange venue. The venue was somebody's greenhouse, because that was the only place big enough in their home for the piano. And one year, the thing that we rehearsed, 3 of us, was 3 little maids from school from the Mikado. And we entered the Thurso Musical Festival, ladies over 16 ensemble class. When we got to the event, we discovered that there were 3 other girls singing the same song in the same class, and they were senior pupils from the high school, so they would have been perhaps 16, 17. We were much older, early 20s. When the class was finished and the adjudicator got up to announce the winners, we 3 ladies were delighted when she said, "The maturer maids have it." And I was one of the maturer maids. It was only then that we discovered that because we had won our class, we were invited to sing in the end of festival winners' concert. And we all turned up at the town hall, 3 of us and our male pianist, to perform in the concert. When we saw the programme, we discovered that we were item 28. It was going to be a long time before item 28 was performing, so we went across to the nearest hostelry and had a wee dram, and then went back to the town hall to see how things were going, only to discover it was still a long way away from item 28. So we went back to the hostelry again, had another wee dram, and when we got back this time, it was pretty much time for us to perform, and our male pianist produced from his bag a large flask of black coffee, and we all had a drink of that before we went on to do our bit. I think our bit went very well. There was much applause, and we all felt that we'd done a good job. It was only after we all got home again that the wife of our pianist said, "How did it go?" And we said, "We thought it went fine." And she said, "Well, when I made you the flask of coffee, I thought you might be nervous, and so I put a large slug of whiskey in it." Well, it did go well. My memory of the details is, not surprisingly, a bit vague. Being in Thurso could be dangerous. Working at the Atomic Energy Authority could be dangerous. Everyone wore film badges to indicate how much exposure to radioactivity they had had. And the site technicians spent a long time working out how much time the scientists could have in various areas of the site. And it was a standing joke among the scientists that the technicians would take 23 minutes with their sophisticated machines in order to be able to tell the scientists that they had 7 minutes and 14 seconds safe working time. Another part of Thurso that could be dangerous, and more immediately so, was the sea. My husband used to be able to say that if he came out of his office on a very gusty day when the wind was powerful, he was in danger of being swept off the mainland and across the sea. And all the while he was on the mainland, because of the situation of his office, he could legitimately say he was the top scientist in Britain. The place to go if you wanted the sea and peace was not Thurso Beach. Thurso did have a beach, but that was usually very busy. If you got up early enough in the morning, you could buy fish and shellfish from the boats as they came in with their catches. If you wanted quiet and natural beauty, you went to Dunnet Head, where the sand dunes were. It was very windy at Dunnet Head, but because of the sand dunes, you could always find a cosy place where the wind would whistle over the top of you and the dunes would shelter you and keep you warm. I was never very good at sunbathing, and one day as a family we were out at the dunes while my husband and son, who went brown easily, were sunning themselves. I took myself for a walk along the shore. And suddenly I found myself part of Hitchcock's film The Birds. If you've ever been dive bombed by birds, it is very scary. And I was dive bombed by birds. The birds in question were Arctic terns, quite big birds with very sharp, hooked bills. I didn't know why I was so attractive to them, and I wished I wasn't, and in order to get out of the way, I ran up the beach nearer to the sand dunes, only to realise that I'd only gone about a metre or so up from where I had been walking, and the birds turned away and ignored me completely. So, danger notwithstanding, I walked back down to the path I had been walking along, and lo and behold, the flotilla of birds appeared instantly. I discovered afterwards that the Arctic terns lay their eggs along the high water line, and I had been walking along the high water line, and the moment I was away from their eggs, they completely lost interest in me. All too soon, our time in Thurso was coming to an end. It was time to move on, time to get out of the shelter of the dunes and venture forth into the big world. I had arrived in Thurso in fear and trepidation as to what I might find. What did I find? I found a welcome. I found friendship. I found friendship that lasted. There are still people that we made friends with 60 years ago that we're in touch with. I acquired a baby, a son, and I'm now a grandmother. Ironically, I am now married to someone called Gemmell, and Gemmell is a Scottish name, and it means the old one, so it gets more appropriate as the years go by, and his background is that he's Scot. But perhaps the most important thing that I found in Thurso was myself. I hope you've enjoyed listening to these recollections of a period of my life that was a long time ago. The stories are as accurate as I can make them within my memory. Thank you very much. It's lovely talking to you. Bye-bye.